The metallic taste flooded my mouth as I watched the reception hall spin around me. My name is Mika Carter. I'm 27, and this should have been the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the day I learned that the greatest danger can come from those who claim to love us most. You look radiant, sweetheart. Daniel's voice was warm against my ear as we stood together in the bridal suite, stealing a quiet moment before joining our guests. His hands found mine, steady and reassuring. After 2 years together, I still felt butterflies when he looked at me like that, like I was his entire world. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I can't believe we're actually married, I whispered, touching the simple gold band on my finger. Mrs. Hayes. That's going to take some getting used to. Daniel's eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. We have the rest of our lives to practice. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. Are you ready for this? The reception, I mean? Your mom's been orchestrating everything like a military operation. I laughed, though something flickered in my chest. She just wants everything to be perfect. You know how she gets. But even as I said it, I remembered the tension in Mom's shoulders that morning, the way she'd hovered over the catering staff, insisting on handling certain dishes herself. "Mikkel, darling!" As if summoned by my thoughts, Margaret Carter appeared in the doorway, resplendent in navy silk. At 54, my mother was still striking, her silver-streaked hair perfectly coiffed, her smile practiced and warm. "Mikkel, darling, the photographer wants a few more shots, and then we simply must get you fed. You've been running on nerves all day." She bustled into the room with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. I'd inherited her strong jawline and dark eyes, but where mine reflected openness, hers seemed to catalog and calculate. "Mom, I'm fine, really." But she was already steering me toward the door, one manicured hand on my elbow. "Nonsense. I've prepared your favorite, that mushroom risotto you love. Made it myself this morning." Her grip tightened almost imperceptibly. "Daniel, why don't you check on your parents? I saw your mother fretting over the seating arrangements." Daniel hesitated, clearly wanting to stay with me, but nodded. "I'll see you in there, Mrs. Hayes." He dropped a kiss on my cheek. The reception hall was everything I dreamed of. Soft lighting cast a golden glow over round tables adorned with white roses and baby's breath. The string quartet played softly as guests mingled, champagne glasses catching the light. I spotted Daniel's parents, Linda and Charles Hayes, near the head table. They'd welcomed me so warmly into their family, despite Mom's subtle coolness toward them. "There's my beautiful bride." Sophie Lane, my maid of honor and best friend since childhood, appeared at my side with a radiant smile. Her auburn hair was swept into an elegant updo, and her emerald bridesmaid dress complemented her fair complexion perfectly. "How are you holding up?" I squeezed her hand gratefully. Sophie had been my anchor through all the wedding chaos, the one person who could always make me laugh when stress threatened to overwhelm me. "Your mother's been quite the director today," she said, lowering her voice. "I swear she's rearranged the place cards 3 times, and don't get me started on the flowers." Her expression grew slightly concerned. "She seemed upset about something earlier. Everything okay?" Before I could answer, Mom materialized beside us with a plate of food. "Here we are, sweetheart. Eat up before it gets cold." She pressed the dish into my hands with unusual insistence. The risotto looked perfect. Creamy, aromatic, studded with the wild mushrooms I'd loved since childhood. "Mom, you didn't have to." "Of course I did. This is your special day, and I want everything to be perfect for you." Her eyes were bright, almost feverish. "Eat it all, Mikkel. I made it with so much love." Something in her tone made Sophie glance between us, her brow furrowing slightly, but I was touched by Mom's gesture. Since Dad died when I was 15, it has just been the two of us against the world. She'd sacrificed so much, working double shifts as a nurse to put me through college. If she wanted to fuss over me on my wedding day, I could indulge her. "It's delicious, Mom!" And it was. Rich and creamy with that earthy mushroom flavor I remembered from childhood. "Thank you for everything today. I know how hard you've worked to make this perfect." Her smile was radiant. "Anything for my baby girl. Now finish every bite. You'll need your strength for dancing later." The reception flowed like a fairy tale. Daniel and I had our first dance to At Last by Etta James, swaying together as if we were the only two people in the room. During dinner, his father stood to give a toast, his voice thick with emotion as he welcomed me into their family. To Daniel and Mikkel, Charles raised his glass, may your love be as enduring as your friendship, and may you always find reasons to laugh together. I stood to respond, my own glass raised, when the first wave of nausea hit. The room tilted slightly, and I gripped the edge of the table. Micaiah? Daniel's voice seemed to come from far away. I'm fine, I started to say, but the words came out slurred. My champagne glass slipped from my fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. Concerned murmurs rippled through the guests as I swayed, my vision blurring. The second wave was worse. My heart began racing, pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. A burning sensation spread through my chest and down my arms. Daniel, I managed, reaching for him as my legs gave out. Micaiah! His arms caught me as I collapsed, but I was already fading. Through the growing darkness, I heard Mom's voice, sharp with panic. Oh my God! Someone called 911! My baby! My poor baby! The last thing I remembered was the taste of metal in my mouth and the sound of my mother weeping as paramedics rushed into the hall. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and fear. I drifted in and out of consciousness, catching fragments of hushed conversations and the steady beeping of monitors. When I finally managed to open my eyes fully, the first face I saw was Daniel's, haggard with exhaustion and worry. Hey there, beautiful, he whispered, squeezing my hand. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck. My voice was hoarse, my throat raw. What happened? Before he could answer, Mom appeared beside him, her face streaked with tears. Oh, sweetheart, we were so scared. The doctor said you had some kind of reaction. Food poisoning, they think. Food poisoning? I tried to sit up, but dizziness forced me back down. But how? We don't know yet, Dr. Martinez, a middle-aged physician with kind eyes, entered the room. Mrs. Hayes, we've run several tests. Your symptoms are consistent with some form of toxic ingestion, but we're still waiting on detailed toxicology results. Toxic ingestion? Daniel's voice was sharp with alarm. You mean she was poisoned? We're being thorough, Dr. Martinez said carefully. Her symptoms, the rapid onset, the cardiovascular distress, the neurological effects, they're more severe than typical food poisoning. Mom's face crumpled. This is all my fault. I should have supervised the catering more closely. Those people, they came with such good references, but you never know. She turned to Daniel, her expression anguished. Your parents helped with some of the food preparation, didn't they? Maybe we should ask them exactly what ingredients they used. I saw Daniel stiffen. My parents are experienced cooks. They would never. Of course not intentionally, Mom's voice rose slightly. But cross-contamination, perhaps. Or maybe they used something they didn't realize was contaminated. She wrung her hands. I keep thinking about that dish they brought, the one with the exotic spices. Micaiah ate some of that, didn't she? Mom, please. I tried to focus through the fog in my brain. Mrs. Hayes is stable for now, but I do need to ask about everything she consumed yesterday. Every dish, every drink. We need a complete picture. The Hayes family has been nothing but wonderful to me, I said firmly, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. They wouldn't hurt anyone. Mom's expression flickered, just for a moment, with something that might have been annoyance. Of course, darling, but people aren't always what they seem, are they? Sometimes the ones closest to us are the most dangerous. The irony of those words would haunt me later. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Dr. Aisha Patel arrived on Tuesday morning like a force of nature contained in a crisp white coat. At 42, she had the kind of commanding presence that made everyone in the room pay attention when she spoke. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her intelligent brown eyes missed nothing. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm Dr. Patel, chief toxicologist." She shook my hand with a firm grip. "I've taken over your case because the initial results have raised some interesting questions." "Interesting how?" Daniel asked from his chair beside my bed. He'd barely left the hospital since Sunday night, surviving on coffee and worry. Dr. Patel consulted her tablet, scrolling through test results. "Your wife's blood work shows the presence of several compounds that don't typically occur together in standard food contamination cases." She looked up at me. "Mrs. Hayes, I need you to walk me through everything you ate and drank at your reception, every detail you can remember." Mom, who'd been hovering near the window, stepped forward. "Doctor, I've already told the other physicians everything. Micah had the chicken, some vegetables, the wedding cake. I prefer to hear from the patient directly." "Mrs. Carter, isn't it? You're the mother?" "Yes, and I've been by my daughter's side since this nightmare began." Mom's voice carried that particular edge I recognized from childhood, the one that appeared when her authority was questioned. "I supervised much of the food preparation myself. I can tell you exactly what she ate." Dr. Patel's expression remained neutral. "I'm sure you can, but I still need to hear from Mrs. Hayes." She turned back to me. "Take your time. Start with the first thing you remember eating at the reception." I closed my eyes, trying to piece together the evening. The cocktail hour. I had maybe half a glass of champagne. Then, during dinner, I paused, the memory sharpening. Mom brought me a plate of mushroom risotto. She made it herself. Homemade. Dr. Patel made a note. "What kind of mushrooms?" "Wild mushrooms," Mom answered quickly. "A variety I've used for years. Micah has always loved them." "Where did you source them?" "A specialty market downtown, Giuseppe's. They're very reputable." Dr. Patel nodded, but continued focusing on me. "What else did you eat?" "Some of the dinner, I think. Chicken, green beans, a bite of the salad." The memories felt fuzzy, filtered through a haze of happiness that now seemed surreal. "Oh, and Daniel's family brought this beautiful side dish. Some kind of grain salad with herbs." I saw Mom's jaw tighten, almost imperceptibly. "This grain salad," Dr. Patel continued. "Did you eat much of it?" "Just a small serving. It was delicious. Linda's recipe, I think." "Mrs. Hayes," Dr. Patel's tone grew more serious. "The compounds we've found in your system include cardiac, glycosides, and heavy metals. These aren't substances you'd encounter in typical food preparation, even with exotic ingredients." Daniel leaned forward. "What does that mean, exactly?" "It means someone with knowledge of pharmaceuticals or plant chemistry deliberately introduced these substances into something your wife consumed. This wasn't an accident, Mr. Hayes. This was attempted murder." The silence that followed was deafening. I felt the blood drain from my face as the implications sunk in. Someone had tried to kill me at my own wedding. "That's impossible," Mom breathed, sinking into a chair. "Who would want to hurt Micah? She doesn't have enemies. Unless—" She trailed off, but I could see the wheels turning in her mind. "Unless what, Mrs. Carter?" "Well, marriages can create tensions. Family dynamics change. Sometimes people feel threatened by new relationships. I'm not saying anyone would intentionally hurt Micah, but people do desperate things when they feel they're losing control." Dr. Patel was watching Mom with new interest. "Are you suggesting someone in your family's circle might have motive to harm your daughter?" "The Hayes family has been nothing but wonderful to me," I said firmly, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. "They wouldn't hurt anyone." Mom's expression flickered, just for a moment, with something that might have been annoyance. Of course, darling, but people aren't always what they seem, are they? Sometimes the ones closest to us are the most dangerous. The irony of those words would haunt me later. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Dr. Aisha Patel arrived on Tuesday morning like a force of nature contained in a crisp white coat. At 42, she had the kind of commanding presence that made everyone in the room pay attention when she spoke. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her intelligent brown eyes missed nothing. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm Dr. Patel, chief toxicologist." She shook my hand with a firm grip. "I've taken over your case because the initial results have raised some interesting questions." "Interesting how?" Daniel asked from his chair beside my bed. He'd barely left the hospital since Sunday night, surviving on coffee and worry. Dr. Patel consulted her tablet, scrolling through test results. "Your wife's blood work shows the presence of several compounds that don't typically occur together in standard food contamination cases." She looked up at me. "Mrs. Hayes, I need you to walk me through everything you ate and drank at your reception, every detail you can remember." Mom, who'd been hovering near the window, stepped forward. "Doctor, I've already told the other physicians everything. Mika had the chicken, some vegetables, the wedding cake. I preferred to hear from the patient directly." Dr. Patel interrupted smoothly. "Mrs. Carter, isn't it? You're the mother?" "Yes, and I've been by my daughter's side since this nightmare began." Mom's voice carried that particular edge I recognized from childhood, the one that appeared when her authority was questioned. "I supervised much of the food preparation myself. I can tell you exactly what she ate." Dr. Patel's expression remained neutral. "I'm sure you can, but I still need to hear from Mrs. Hayes." She turned back to me. "Take your time. Start with the first thing you remember eating at the reception." I closed my eyes, trying to piece together the evening. "The cocktail hour. I had maybe half a glass of champagne. Then during dinner," I paused, the memory sharpening. "Mom brought me a plate of mushroom risotto. She made it herself." "Homemade?" Dr. Patel made a note. "What kind of mushrooms?" "Wild mushrooms, a variety I've used for years. Mika has always loved them." "Where did you source them?" "A specialty market downtown, Giuseppe's. They're very reputable." Dr. Patel nodded, but continued focusing on me. "What else did you eat?" "Some of the dinner, I think. Green beans, a bite of the salad." The memories felt fuzzy, filtered through a haze of happiness that now seemed surreal. "Oh, and Daniel's family brought this beautiful side dish, some kind of grain salad with herbs." I saw Mom's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. "This grain salad," Dr. Patel continued. "Did you eat much of it?" "Just a small serving. It was delicious. Linda's recipe, I think." "Mrs. Hayes?" Dr. Patel's tone grew more serious. "The compounds we found in your system include cardiac glycosides and heavy metals. These aren't substances you'd encounter in typical food preparation, even with exotic ingredients." Daniel leaned forward. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means someone with knowledge of pharmaceuticals or plant chemistry deliberately introduced these substances into something your wife consumed. This wasn't an accident, Mr. Hayes. This was attempted murder." The silence that followed was deafening. I felt the blood drain from my face as the implications sank in. Someone had tried to kill me at my own wedding. "That's impossible," Mom breathed, sinking into a chair. "Who would want to hurt Mika? She doesn't have enemies. Unless—" She trailed off, but I could see the wheels turning in her mind. "Unless what, Mrs. Carter?" "Well, marriages can create tensions. Family dynamics change. Sometimes people feel threatened by new relationships." Mom's voice was carefully measured, but I caught the underlying current.
I'm not saying anyone would intentionally hurt Mika, but people do desperate things when they feel they're losing control. Dr. Patel was watching Mom with new interest. Are you suggesting someone in your family circle might have had motive to harm your daughter?
Sometimes people hide their true feelings very well, Mom interjected, moving closer to my bed. Detective, I have to tell you, there were some tensions around this marriage. Not everyone was entirely supportive. Reed's pen paused over his notepad. What kind of tensions? Well, some people felt things were moving too fast. Mika's only 27, and she has so much ahead of her. Marriage is such a big step, and when you add the pressure of blending families, Mom's voice carried a note of carefully controlled emotion. I supported her decision, of course, but others had reservations. Others? Reed's eyes were sharp. Anyone specific? I watched in growing dismay as Mom appeared to struggle with whether to speak. It was a performance I recognized from childhood, the reluctant revelation, the information shared only under duress. I hate to say this because they're Daniel's parents and I know he loves them, but Linda and Charles Hayes were quite vocal about their concerns. Mom's voice dropped to a whisper. They thought Mika wasn't right for their son. That's not true! Daniel shot to his feet, his face flushed with anger. My parents adore Mika. They've been nothing but welcoming since the day I brought her home. Daniel, sweetheart, I know you want to defend them, but I heard them myself. At the rehearsal dinner, Linda was asking whether you and Mika had discussed prenuptials. She seemed quite concerned about protecting the family assets. My heart sank as I remembered the conversation. It had been awkward, yes, but I'd interpreted it as typical parental protectiveness, not malice. That's completely taken out of context, Daniel protested. Mom was just trying to make sure we discussed all the practical aspects of marriage. She wants us to be happy. Reed was taking notes, his expression neutral. Mrs. Carter, did you witness any other concerning behavior from the Hayes family? Well, there was the matter of the food they brought to the reception. Mom twisted her wedding ring nervously. They insisted on contributing to the menu, which was sweet, but they were very secretive about the ingredients. When I asked Linda about her grain salad recipe, she was quite evasive. She was protecting a family recipe, I said weakly. That's normal. Of course, darling. But combined with everything else? Mom trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Everything else? Reed prompted. The phone calls that stopped when I entered the room, the way they looked at each other during the ceremony, like they were sharing some private joke. And Charles seemed quite interested in the catering setup, asking a lot of questions about timing and presentation. Mom's voice grew stronger, more confident. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now? This is insane! Daniel's voice cracked with disbelief. You're describing my parents like they're criminals. They've done nothing but try to make Mika feel welcomed into our family. Reed held up a hand. Mr. Hayes, I understand this is upsetting, but I need to follow every lead. These may all be innocent behaviors taken out of context, but I have to investigate them. He turned back to me. Mrs. Hayes, what's your impression of your in-laws' feelings toward you? I wanted to defend them immediately, but something in Mom's expression gave me pause. The certainty in her voice, the specific details. What if I'd been naive? What if my happiness had blinded me to signs of resentment? I've always seemed to care about me, I said slowly. But I suppose, Daniel and I did move pretty quickly. Maybe they thought I wasn't good enough for him. Mika, no! Daniel knelt beside my bed, taking my hand. They love you. I know they do. But doubt had crept in, poisonous as whatever had nearly killed me. Reed was watching us carefully, and I wondered what he saw. A loving couple under stress, or something more troubling? Detective, there's something else you should know. Mom's voice was reluctant again, as if she were forcing herself to share painful information.
The night before the wedding, I saw Charles in the hotel kitchen area. It was quite late, past midnight, and when I asked him what he was doing, he seemed startled, almost guilty. What did he say? That he couldn't sleep and was looking for ice, but the ice machines are on every floor, not in the kitchen area, and he was carrying a small bag, like he was putting something away rather than looking for something. Daniel stared at her in shock. You never mentioned this before? I didn't want to cause trouble over what might have been nothing, but now with Mika in the hospital, I keep wondering if I should have said something sooner, if I could have prevented this.
My name is Elena Vargas. I'm 38, a part-time librarian with calloused hands from shelving books and dreams I buried so deep I sometimes forget they existed. I've eaten ramen for dinner more nights than I can count and slept through collection calls that stopped surprising me years ago. Nothing prepared me for what I walked into at my Aunt Carmen's funeral. I wore my only decent black dress because she would have wanted it. Carmen Vargas, the woman who raised 3 kids on a seamstress salary and never missed Sunday Mass. When she smiled, people felt safer. But as I stepped into the funeral home chapel, my training from years of disappointment kicked in for a different reason. My mother sat in the front pew, her posture rigid, jacket clutched tight at her sides. She kept touching her phone like she was checking for messages. She wasn't here to grieve. She was here to manage something. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I made my way to the reception area, where they'd set up a small bar. After 2 hours of condolences and memories, I needed something stronger than the watery coffee they were serving. I handed my credit card to the bartender, already knowing what would happen. The same thing that had happened at grocery stores, gas stations, and every other place where normal people conducted normal business. I'm sorry, ma'am. This card's been declined. The familiar burn crept up my neck. 20 years of this. 20 years of standing in lines, fumbling for cash, making excuses about bank errors and system glitches. The bartender looked at me with that particular mix of pity and suspicion that comes with watching someone fail at something as basic as buying a drink. I tried this one, I said, pulling out my debit card. Same result. Same apologetic shake of the head. Behind me, my cousin Maria whispered to her husband, Elena never did get her life together, did she? The words hit like they always did, sharp and aimed at the parts of me that still believed I deserved better. I was fishing for cash when I heard my mother's voice cut through the low murmur of conversation. She was in the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, thinking no one could hear her. The accounts are fine. She doesn't know anything, and she's not going to find out. Just keep everything locked down until this blows over. I froze. The accounts. She. The girl can't find out. Marissa, you okay, mija? Carmen's neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, appeared at my mother's elbow. My mother snapped the phone shut and plastered on her funeral smile. Of course, just handling some business for Carmen's estate. But I heard the edge in her voice, the same edge that appeared whenever I asked too many questions about why banks kept rejecting my applications, why my credit reports showed inconsistencies I couldn't explain, why opportunities seemed to slip away no matter how hard I worked. The funeral director approached with that practiced funeral home solemnity. Ms. Vargas, we need to finalize the payment arrangements. My mother stepped forward smoothly. I'll handle it. Elena's been having some financial difficulties. There it was again, the explanation that followed me everywhere. Elena's having difficulties. Elena's credit is a mess. Elena can't get her act together. Always delivered with just enough concern to sound sympathetic, just enough resignation to make it clear whose fault it really was. I watched my mother pull out a sleek wallet, count out crisp hundreds like they were singles. For someone who constantly worried about money, who reminded me weekly that I was a burden she couldn't afford, she seemed remarkably flush. The funeral ended with the usual promises to stay in touch and the usual relief when people finally started leaving. I was gathering my things when Mrs. Rodriguez pulled me aside. Your mother seems very stressed lately, more than usual. More than usual?
She's been asking a lot of questions about Carmen's paperwork, bank statements, insurance policies. She wanted to know if Carmen had kept any records about you. My stomach dropped. Records about me? Financial records. Carmen mentioned once that she'd helped you apply for scholarships years ago. Your mother wanted to know if she'd kept copies of the applications. I remembered those scholarship applications. I'd filled out dozens my senior year of high school, dreaming of college, of law school, of a life that felt bigger than our small apartment. Every single one had been rejected. Financial inconsistencies, they said. Information that didn't match federal records. I'd blamed myself for 20 years. Careless mistakes on forms, bad luck, the universe telling me I wasn't meant for more. Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed my arm. Your mother always said you were the smartest of Marissa's girls. She never understood why things went so wrong for you.
I drove home in silence, her words echoing in my head. Things went wrong. For me. Not things went wrong. Things went wrong for me. Like they were done to me, not by me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation, the phone call, the way my mother had moved so smoothly to pay for the funeral. I had lived with financial chaos for so long, it felt normal. But what if it wasn't chaos at all? What if it was a pattern? What if someone had been orchestrating my failures for 20 years? The thought was too terrible to fully form, but it was there now, crawling under my skin like a splinter. Because the only person who'd been present for every rejection, every denial, every humiliating moment when my life fell apart was the one person who was supposed to protect me from exactly that kind of pain. And she'd never look surprised. Not once. 3 days after the funeral, I stood in my childhood bedroom holding my aunt's jewelry box and trying not to think about the conversation with Mrs. Rodriguez. The house felt smaller than I remembered, filled with the particular sadness of spaces where people used to live. My mother was downstairs, supposedly organizing Carmen's papers, but I could hear her on another hushed phone call. I need more time. The situation is under control, but I need to make sure nothing surfaces. I set the jewelry box down and moved toward the hallway, but she must have heard my footsteps because the conversation ended abruptly. Just going through Carmen's things, she called up the stairs, her voice artificially bright. Why don't you check the attic? She kept a lot of old family photos up there. The attic ladder creaked under my weight. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light filtering through the small window. Carmen had been organized in life, and her storage was no different. Boxes labeled in her careful handwriting, Christmas decorations, winter clothes, family photos. And then, pushed far back under the eaves, a box labeled Elena, important papers. My hands shook as I pulled it toward the light. Inside, folders organized by year, starting with my senior year of high school, scholarship applications in my handwriting, college admission letters, financial aid forms. But underneath those, something that made my blood turn to ice water. Loan documents, credit card applications, bank account openings, all in my name, all in handwriting that wasn't mine. My mother's handwriting. I pulled out document after document, my vision blurring as the scope of it became clear. A loan car from 2003 when I was 19 and had never owned a car. A credit card with a $15,000 limit opened the same month I'd applied for my first student loan. A mortgage application for a property I'd never seen. All signed with my name, all approved with my social security number, all used by someone else. The dates told the story I'd been too trusting to see. Every major financial disaster in my life corresponded to a document in this box. The scholarship I'd lost for inconsistent financial information,
My mother had opened 3 credit accounts in my name the same month I'd applied. The student loans that were mysteriously denied, she'd already maxed out my borrowing capacity with cards I didn't know existed. I sat on the attic floor, surrounded by 20 years of systematic betrayal, and tried to remember how to breathe. A memory surfaced with sickening clarity. Senior year, the morning my scholarship rejection letters arrived, I'd been devastated, crying at the kitchen table. My mother had rubbed my shoulders and said, "Don't worry, mija. Some people just aren't meant for college. You'll find your way." She'd known. She'd known because she'd orchestrated it. I heard her voice from downstairs on another phone call. "She's in the attic now. No, she won't find anything important. I made sure of that years ago." But she was wrong. I'd found everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel Cortez, my childhood friend who still lived in the neighborhood. "Haven't seen you around lately. Everything okay?" Daniel, the boy next door who'd watched me struggle through 20 years of bad luck and never once suggested it might not be luck at all, who'd lent me money when I couldn't make rent, who'd given me rides when my car was repossessed, who'd held me while I cried about doors that kept slamming in my face. I looked at the documents spread around me like evidence of a crime, because that's what they were. I took pictures of every page with my phone, my hands steadier now than they had been in years. Then, I packed everything back in the box exactly as I'd found it. When I came downstairs, my mother was arranging flowers with the focused intensity of someone trying to look busy.
"Find anything interesting up there?" "Just photos," I said. Carmen was sentimental. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She always did keep too much junk. Some things are better thrown away. "Some things," I agreed. "But some things need to be preserved. For the record." That evening, I sat in Daniel's garage while he worked under the hood of his latest project. I'd driven straight to his shop, the documents burning like secrets in my bag. "I need to show you something," I said. "But once I do, there's no going back." He rolled out from under the car, wiping his hands on a rag. Daniel had gentle eyes and strong hands, the kind of man who fixed things instead of breaking them. We'd been friends since we were kids, something more than friends since we were teenagers, though we'd never put a name to it. "Elena, you're scaring me." I pulled out my phone and showed him the pictures, watched his face change as he understood what he was looking at. The color drained from his cheeks. Preparing and narrating the story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Jesus Christ, Elena. This is identity theft. It's my mother. It's a federal crime. I'd been hoping he'd find some other explanation, some way this could be a misunderstanding. But Daniel had always been the one person who didn't lie to me, not even when the truth hurt. "She destroyed your life. Every single thing that went wrong, every door that closed, every time you thought you weren't good enough, she did that to you." The words hung between us like a bridge I wasn't sure I was ready to cross, because once I walked across it, everything would be different. My family, my understanding of my own life, my future, all of it would change. "You have to report this. You have to turn her in. She's my mother. She's a criminal who stole 20 years of your life." He was right. I knew he was right. But sitting there in the amber light of the garage, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and honest work, I felt like a little girl again. A little girl who still wanted to believe her mother loved her more than she loved herself. But the evidence was there, captured in my phone, waiting for me to decide what kind of person I was going to be. The kind who protected family secrets, or the kind who demanded justice for the life that had been stolen from her. I looked at Daniel, this man who'd watched me struggle and never once suggested I deserved it, who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself,
who was looking at me now, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time. "Will you come with me?" I asked. "Where?" "To the FBI." The FBI field office was nothing like the sterile, high-tech facility you see in movies. It was housed in a converted office building downtown, the kind of place where insurance companies and accounting firms conducted their quiet business. I sat in the waiting area with Daniel, my bag clutched in my lap like a life preserver, trying not to think about what I was about to do. Elena Vargas, a man in a rumpled suit, appeared. Mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, tired eyes that had seen too much of humanity's worst impulses. "You said on the phone this was about identity theft?" We followed him down a hallway lined with motivational posters and FBI recruitment flyers. His office was small and cramped, dominated by a desk covered in case files and coffee-stained folders. The only personal touch was a photo of 2 kids in Little League uniforms. "So," he said, settling behind his desk, "tell me what's going on." I'd rehearsed this moment, but sitting across from a federal agent, the words felt inadequate. How do you explain that your entire adult life has been a lie? That the person who was supposed to protect you has been systematically destroying you for 20 years? "My mother stole my identity," I said. "Starting when I was 18. She's been using my social security number, opening accounts, taking out loans, ruining my credit. I have documentation." Ryan's expression didn't change. "How long has this been going on?" 20 years. Now his eyebrows went up. 20 years, and you're just now reporting it?
The judgment in his voice made me want to shrink into my chair. I didn't know. I thought I was just unlucky. Bad credit, applications getting rejected, financial problems. I thought it was my fault. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos. Watched him scroll through loan documents, credit applications, bank statements. His expression grew more serious with each image. "These are definitely fraudulent," he said. "The handwriting analysis alone would be enough to prove it. But I have to ask, why didn't you notice these accounts on your credit report?" "I was 18 when it started," I said. "I didn't know to check my credit. And by the time I did, there were so many problems that I thought they were my own mistakes. She was always there when I applied for things, helping me fill out forms. If something got rejected, she'd say it was because of errors I'd made." Daniel spoke up. "Elena's been struggling financially her entire adult life. Every time she tried to better herself, college, better jobs, her own apartment, something would go wrong. Now we know why." Ryan leaned back in his chair. "You understand this isn't just a family dispute. If these documents are authentic, we're talking about multiple federal crimes. Wire fraud, mail fraud, identity theft. Your mother could be looking at decades in prison." The weight of those words settled on my chest like a stone. Decades. I'd imagined some kind of middle ground, a way to make this right without destroying my family. But there was no middle ground in federal court. "I know," I said quietly, "but I can't live with this anymore. Every day for 20 years, I felt like a failure, like I wasn't smart enough, wasn't good enough, wasn't worthy of the life I wanted. And it was all a lie." Ryan made notes on a legal pad. "I'll need you to come in and make a formal statement. We'll need the original documents, not just photos. And I have to warn you, once we start this process, there's no going back. Your mother will likely be arrested, charged, and prosecuted to the full extent of the law." "What about the accounts she opened?" Daniel asked. "Elena's been dealing with collection calls and damaged credit for years." "If we can prove fraud, those debts will be discharged. Elena's credit will be cleared, but it's a long process and it requires full cooperation with the investigation." I thought about what full cooperation meant. Testifying against my mother, providing evidence that would send her to prison, watching my family fall apart in a federal courtroom? "Can I ask you something?" Ryan said. "In 20 years, your mother never slipped up, never said anything that made you suspicious?" I thought about the phone calls, the way she always had money when she claimed to be broke, the nervous energy at the funeral. She was careful, and I trusted her.
When you trust someone completely, you don't question their explanations. What changed? She got cocky. At my aunt's funeral, she made some phone calls, talked about keeping accounts locked down, making sure I didn't find out. And then I found the box of documents. Ryan nodded. Criminals usually get caught when they get comfortable. 20 years is a long time to maintain a deception this elaborate. There's probably more we don't know about yet. More. The word sent a chill through me. What else had she done? What other victims were there? Detective Hale, I need you to understand something. This isn't about revenge. This is about getting my life back. For 20 years, I've been living in a cage I didn't know existed. I want out. He studied me for a long moment. I believe you, and I think what happened to you is unconscionable. But before you decide to move forward, you need to understand what you're getting into. This investigation will turn your life upside down. Your family will hate you. Your mother will probably try to manipulate you into dropping the charges, and the legal process can take years. What's the alternative? You walk away. Accept that it happened, try to rebuild your credit on your own, and pretend this conversation never took place. I looked at Daniel, who'd been quiet through most of the conversation. He reached over and took my hand. Elena, you've been accepting things your whole life. Accepting that doors would close, that opportunities would disappear, that you weren't meant for better. When do you stop accepting and start fighting? He was right. I'd spent 20 years accepting a version of myself that wasn't real. A version in which I was unlucky, unsuccessful, unworthy of the life I wanted. And it was all a lie. I turned back to Ryan. What do we do first?
We smiled for the first time since we'd sat down. First, we run a comprehensive background check on your social security number. See exactly how deep this goes. Then we build a case that'll make sure this never happens to anyone else. That evening, Ryan called me at home. Elena, you need to sit down. I was already sitting, but I gripped the phone tighter. What did you find? Your identity is flagged in 17 different federal databases. Credit reporting agencies, the IRS, Homeland Security, the Social Security Administration. According to our records, Elena Vargas has been simultaneously living in California, Texas, and Florida. She's worked for companies that don't exist, owned property in states she's never visited, and has a tax history that looks like a shell game. The room seemed to tilt around me. 17 databases? Elena, your mother didn't just steal your identity. She's been using it as part of a much larger operation. We think she's connected to a network that specializes in identity theft and financial fraud. You're not just a victim, you're evidence. After I hung up, I sat in my empty apartment, surrounded by 20 years of barely getting by, and tried to wrap my mind around what Ryan had told me. My mother wasn't just a desperate woman who made bad choices. She was part of something bigger, something organized, something that had used me as a pawn in a game I didn't even know I was playing. For the first time in my life, my failures made sense. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to accept them. I picked up the phone and dialed Ryan's number. Detective Hale, it's Elena. I want to make that formal statement, tonight, if possible. Are you sure? I looked around my apartment, at the life I'd built from scraps and disappointment, at the future I'd always believed was beyond my reach. I'm sure. It's time to tell the truth. The next morning, I drove to Sophia's apartment with a folder full of evidence and a sick feeling in my stomach. My younger sister lived in a clean 2-bedroom complex on the good side of town, the kind of place I'd always dreamed of affording. She answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled back in the messy bun that somehow looked effortless on her. Elena, what are you doing here so early? She looked genuinely surprised to see me, which hurt more than it should. We'd grown apart over the years, but I'd always told myself it was just life pulling us in different directions. Now I wondered if there were other reasons. We need to talk about Mom. Sophia's face immediately went guarded. If this is about the funeral arrangements, I already told you. It's not about the funeral. I held up the folder.
It's about what she's been doing to me for 20 years. Sophia stepped back to let me in, but her posture stayed defensive. Her apartment was magazine perfect. Coordinated furniture, fresh flowers, the kind of decorative touches that cost money. The kind of money a part-time yoga instructor shouldn't have. I spread the documents across her coffee table like tarot cards revealing an ugly future. Bank statements, loan applications, credit card agreements. All in my name, none signed by me. What is this? She picked up a car loan document from 2005. Elena, I don't understand. Mom stole my identity, starting when I was 18. Every time I've been denied credit, rejected for a loan, turned down for an apartment, it's because she was using my social security number to open accounts I didn't know existed. Sophia stared at the papers, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that looked like fear. This can't be right. Mom wouldn't. She's our mother. Look at the handwriting, Sophia. Look at the dates. Remember when I got rejected for that scholarship senior year? When I couldn't get into the dorms because of financial irregularities? When I had to drop out of community college because my student loans were denied? Sophia's hands shook as she examined the documents. This doesn't prove anything. Maybe these are mistakes, mix-ups. 17 different databases, Sophia. The FBI confirmed it yesterday. She's not just stealing from me, she's part of something bigger. The FBI? Helena, what did you do? What did I do? I reported a crime. Multiple felonies. Federal charges. Sophia dropped the papers like they were contaminated. You turned in our mother? Our mother turned herself in the moment she forged my name on the first document. But Sophia was already shaking her head, backing away from the coffee table. No, Elena, this is crazy. You're being paranoid. Mom has always taken care of us. She sacrificed everything.
With whose money? The question came out sharper than I intended. Sophia, look around this apartment. How do you afford this place? Your car, your clothes, those trips to Europe you post on Instagram. Where does the money come from? Sophia's face went pale. I work. I teach yoga. I have clients. Part-time yoga instructors don't make enough to live like this. I gestured around the apartment. Not unless they have help. I watched the realization dawn on her face, piece by piece. The occasional gifts from Mom, the mysterious checks that appeared when Sophia was between jobs, the way our mother always seemed to know exactly how much Sophia needed and when she needed it. Oh, God, Sophia whispered. The down payment for this place. Mom said she'd been saving. Saving what? She works at a department store, Sophia. She makes minimum wage. Sophia sank onto the couch, her hands covering her face. The tuition. When I went back to school for my certification, she paid the whole thing up front. $15,000. She said she'd gotten a settlement from an old injury. There was no settlement. Sophia looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. You're saying she used your identity to pay for my education? I sat down beside her, the anger draining out of me. Sophia wasn't the enemy. She was another victim, just one who'd benefited instead of suffered. I don't think she went to hurt you. But yeah, she used my credit, my good standing, my future to give you opportunities I never had. Sophia was quiet for a long time, staring at the documents spread across her coffee table. When she finally spoke, her voice was small and broken. I always wondered why things were so much easier for me than for you. You were smarter, harder working, but nothing ever went right for you. I thought I was just luckier. You were luckier. You had a mother who loved you enough to sacrifice someone else's life for yours. She flinched. That's not fair. Neither's identity theft. She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Elena, you can't do this. You can't destroy our family over money. We can fix this. We can pay back whatever she owes. Sophia, she's facing federal charges.
Wire fraud, mail fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. This isn't about paying back money. This is about 20 years of systematic crime. She's our mother. She's a criminal who stole my life to improve yours. The words hung in the air between us like a bridge on fire. Sophia turned back to me, her face streaked with tears and something that looked like hate. So what, you're gonna send her to prison? You're gonna destroy everything we have left? What do we have left, Sophia? A family built on lies? A relationship based on one daughter's success stolen from the other? What exactly am I supposed to be protecting? Sophia didn't answer. She couldn't answer, because we both knew the truth. Our family had been broken for 20 years. I was just the first one willing to admit it. The FBI agent told me something yesterday. He said criminals usually get caught when they get comfortable, when they stop being careful because they think they're untouchable. Sophia wiped her eyes. What's that supposed to mean? It means Mom has been doing this for so long she probably has other secrets, other victims, other crimes. If I don't report this, if I let it go, she'll keep destroying people. Maybe not me anymore, but someone. Sophia sat back down, deflated. What happens now? Now you decide what kind of person you want to be. Someone who stands up for what's right, or someone who protects a criminal because she shares your DNA. Sophia picked up one of the bank statements, studying her mother's forged signature. If I testify against her? If you testify for the truth, she'll go to prison. She'll face the consequences of her choices. Sophia was quiet for a long time. Then, in a voice so small I almost missed it, there's something else. My stomach dropped. What?
The safe. In Mom's basement. She made me promise never to tell anyone about it, but there are documents in there. Financial records, account numbers, things with other people's names on them. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Other people's names. Sophia, how long have you known about the safe? Since high school. She told me it was insurance papers, important documents she needed to keep secure. But a few months ago, I saw her putting something in there. Bank statements that didn't look like ours. I stood up, my mind racing. We have to get into that safe. Elena, no. If she finds out, she's going to find out anyway. The FBI is going to tear her life apart looking for evidence. The question is whether we help them find the truth or we wait for them to find it without our help. Sophia looked at me with something between fear and admiration. When did you become so brave? I thought about the question. When had I stopped accepting things and started fighting them? Maybe it was when I found the documents in Carmen's attic. Maybe it was when I walked into the FBI office. Or maybe it was 20 years ago, the first time I got rejected for something I deserved, and some small part of me refused to believe I wasn't worthy. I think I've always been brave, I said. I just forgot for a while. Sophia wiped her eyes and stood up. Mom's working until 6 tonight. If we're going to do this, we have to do it now. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw myself 20 years ago, young, trusting, willing to believe the best about people who didn't deserve it, but also brave enough to face the truth when it was finally revealed. Are you sure about this? Sophia nodded, though her hands were still shaking. I can't live knowing I benefited from someone else's stolen life, even if that someone is my sister, especially if that someone is my sister. We drove to our mother's house in silence, both of us understanding that whatever we found in that basement safe would change everything, not just for our family, but for all the other families whose lives had been touched by our mother's crimes. The key to my mother's basement was exactly where Sophia said it would be, under the 3rd flower pot on the back porch, wrapped in electrical tape to keep the rust away. The basement smelled like damp concrete and old laundry detergent, the kind of smell that triggers childhood memories you'd rather forget. I followed Sophia down the wooden steps, my phone's flashlight cutting through the dim space. It's behind the water heater, she whispered, though we both knew the house was empty. She had it installed about 5 years ago. Professional job, fireproof, the works. The safe was bigger than I had expected. Not some small lockbox you'd keep jewelry in, but a proper document safe, the kind lawyers and accountants used for client files. It was built into the wall behind a panel that looked like part of the basement's original construction. "How did you find this?" I asked. "I was helping her move the washing machine. The panel was open and I saw the safe. She made me swear never to tell anyone about it. Said it was for family emergencies, insurance papers, things like that." Sophia knelt in front of the safe and started turning the dial. She never changed the combination. Our birth years, 1985, 1993. The lock clicked open with a sound that seemed too loud in the confined space. Sophia pulled the heavy door open, revealing neat stacks of folders, manila envelopes, and what looked like multiple checkbooks. I pulled out the first folder and opened it. Bank statements for accounts I'd never heard of in names I didn't recognize. Susan Martinez, David Chen, Jennifer Walsh, all showing regular deposits, transfers, and withdrawals, all organized by month and year going back a decade. "Sophia," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "these aren't insurance papers." She was holding a manila envelope labeled property deeds. Inside were documents for houses in 3 different states, all purchased with different identities, all showing my mother as the beneficial owner through various shell companies. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures, my hands steadier than I felt. Document after document, each one revealing another layer of a criminal enterprise that had been operating out of our family basement for years. "Elena," Sophia's voice was tight with fear, "look at this." She was holding a notebook, the kind students use for class notes, but instead of lecture notes, it contained names, social security numbers, birth dates, and what looked like credit scores. Dozens of them, organized alphabetically like a contact list. "She's got a whole database of victims," I said. "This isn't just identity theft. This is organized fraud on a massive scale." I flipped through the notebook, recognizing some of the names from news stories about financial scams. People who'd had their lives destroyed by identity theft, who'd fought for years to clear their names and rebuild their credit. People like me. Sophia pulled out another folder, this one labeled Offshore Transfers, bank routing numbers for accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Panama, amounts that made my stomach lurch, hundreds of thousands of dollars, all flowing through accounts that shouldn't exist. "How long has she been doing this?" Sophia asked. I checked the dates on the oldest documents. At least 15 years, maybe longer. I was photographing a particularly damning set of wire transfer receipts when I heard it, the soft sound of gravel crunching in the driveway above us. Sophia and I froze, listening to the unmistakable sound of a car door closing. "She's not supposed to be home until 6, Sophia whispered. I checked my phone. It was barely 4 o'clock. Through the basement's small window, I could see the shadow of someone moving across the backyard. Someone who knew exactly where they were going. "Keep photographing," I whispered. "We may not get another chance." But Sophia was already closing folders, her movements quick and panicked. "Elena, we have to go. If she finds us down here..." A shadow passed by the basement window, then another. 2 people, moving with the kind of purpose that suggested they weren't here for a casual visit. I grabbed as many folders as I could, stuffing them under my jacket. Sophia was frantically trying to reorganize the safe to look undisturbed, but her hands were shaking too badly to be effective. "Leave it," I hissed. "We go now." We crept up the basement stairs, listening for voices, footsteps, any indication of where the visitors were. The kitchen was empty, but I could hear conversation from the front of the house. "The accounts are clean," a man said, "but the girl's been asking questions. Our contact at the bank says she's been making inquiries." "I told you she was getting suspicious," my mother's voice, sharper than I've ever heard it. "We need to accelerate the timeline." "What about the sister?" "Sophia doesn't know anything. She's been useful, but she's not a threat." I felt Sophia stiffen beside me. Useful. Even now, even after everything we'd discovered, hearing our mother reduce her to a tool in her criminal enterprise hit like a physical blow. "And if Elena goes to the authorities..." "She won't. She's too weak, too afraid of confrontation. She's been taking whatever life hands her for 20 years. She's not going to suddenly grow a spine now." The words cut deeper than any document in that safe.
20 years of systematic destruction, and she thought I was too weak to fight back. Sophia grabbed my arm, pointing toward the back door. We could slip out the way we'd come in, get to the car before anyone noticed. But as we moved toward the door, I saw something that made my blood freeze. A black sedan idling at the end of the street. No front license plate, tinted windows. The same car I'd glimpsed outside my grandfather's workshop in the writing sample, the one that had driven away the moment I'd looked directly at it. They weren't just visiting my mother. They were watching the house, watching us. I pulled Sophia back into the kitchen, my mind racing. If we left now, they'd know we'd been here. If we stayed, we risked being discovered. But if we called the police from the phone house, they'd hear us. The conversation in the front room was getting heated. "The accounts are clean," a man said, "but the girl's been asking questions. Our contact at the bank says she's been making inquiries." "I told you she was getting suspicious. We need to accelerate the timeline." "What about the sister?" "Sophia doesn't know anything. She's been useful, but she's not a threat." "There's another option," my mother said, her voice dropping to a whisper I had to strain to hear. "Elena's been depressed for years. Everyone knows she's struggled financially, emotionally. If something were to happen to her..." I felt the weight of that responsibility settle on my shoulders. "What do you need me to do?" Detective Hale and Agent Chen exchanged a look. "We need you to wear a wire." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Sophia grabbed my arm. "Absolutely not. Elena, if she suspects anything..." "She's already threatened to kill me," I pointed out. "How much worse can it get?" "Much worse," Agent Martinez said bluntly. "If these people realize you're working with law enforcement, they won't hesitate to eliminate you. We're talking about millions of dollars and federal prison sentences. People have been killed for less." Agent Chen pulled out what looked like a small button. "This is a digital recording device, state-of-the-art, nearly undetectable. You'd wear it into a meeting with your mother, try to get her to incriminate herself and her associates." "Try to get her to confess to planning my murder, you mean?" "Among other things, yes." I thought about the conversation we'd overheard, the casual way my mother had discussed my death. The woman who'd raised me, who taught me to ride a bike and helped me with homework, had looked at me as nothing more than a problem to be solved. "What happens after I get the confession?" "We coordinate simultaneous raids. Your mother's house, the properties listed in those deeds, known associates, bank safety deposit boxes. We move fast and we move hard, before anyone has a chance to destroy evidence or disappear." Sophia was shaking her head. "This is insane. Elena, please, there has to be another way." I looked at my sister, at the terror in her eyes, and felt something shift inside me. For 20 years, I'd been the accommodating one, the one who accepted whatever life handed her. Sophia had been the protected one, the one who got the opportunities and the support and the love. But Sophia had also been the unknowing beneficiary of stolen money. Her education, her apartment, her comfortable life, all of it built on the destruction of my future. And while that wasn't her fault, it wasn't something I could ignore anymore either. "Sophia," I said gently, "what other way is there? Let her keep destroying people? Let her kill me to protect her criminal empire? Pretend none of this happened and go back to being her victim? She's our mother. She's a stranger who happens to share our DNA." Agent Chen leaned forward. "Elena, I need to be clear about the risks. If you do this and something goes wrong, we might not be able to protect you. These people are dangerous and they're desperate. Are you willing to take that chance?" I thought about the notebook full of victims' names, the offshore accounts full of stolen money, the property dates for houses bought with other people's identities. I thought about the 20 years of my life that had been stolen from me and all the other lives that had been stolen from people I'd never meet. "Detective Hale," I said, "you told me earlier that criminals usually get caught when they get comfortable, when they think they're untouchable." "That's right. My mother has been comfortable for 20 years. She's gotten away with destroying my life and dozens of other lives because no one has ever challenged her, because her victims have been isolated, confused, too scared, or too ashamed to fight back." I stood up, feeling steadier than I had in years. "I'm not isolated anymore, I'm not confused, and I'm definitely not too scared to fight back." Sophia looked up at me with something that might have been admiration. "Elena, I know this is hard for you. I know you love her, and part of me still loves her too. But love doesn't excuse what she's done. It doesn't bring back the 20 years she's stolen from me, or the lives she's destroyed, or the fact that she threatened to kill me to protect her crimes. Agent Chen nodded approvingly. When do you want to do this? Tomorrow. She'll be expecting me to confront her about the safe being disturbed. It'll seem natural that I'd want to talk. Detective Hale made notes on his legal pad. We'll need to set up surveillance, coordinate with local units, brief the raid teams. This is going to be a complex operation. How complex? Agent Martinez answered. Based on the documents you found, we're looking at properties in California, Texas, and Florida, bank accounts in at least 5 states and 3 countries, associates we've been tracking for years. This could be one of the largest identity theft busts in federal history. The magnitude of it was staggering. My personal family drama was about to become a multi-state federal operation. The woman who'd criticized my life choices and dismissed my dreams was about to be the target of a massive law enforcement action.
Agent Chen, Sophia said quietly, what happens to the money? The accounts she opened, the debts in Elena's name. If we can prove fraud, which we can, those debts will be discharged. Elena's credit will be restored. As for the stolen money, that gets more complicated. Some of it can be recovered and returned to victims. Some of it is probably gone forever. And our mother? Agent Chen didn't sugarcoat it. Based on what Elena found today, she's looking at multiple federal charges. Wire fraud, mail fraud, identity theft, money laundering, conspiracy, and now conspiracy to commit murder. She could be facing life in prison. Life in prison. The woman who'd sung me lullabies and made me lunch for school could spend the rest of her life behind bars. The thought should have made me sad. But mostly, I felt empty. The mother I'd loved had been dead for 20 years. I was just finally burying her. There's one more thing, Detective Hale said. Elena, once you do this, once you testify against your mother and her associates, you'll be a federal witness in a major criminal case. Your life is going to change permanently. You'll never be able to pretend this didn't happen. I thought about that. A life where I couldn't pretend my mother loved me. A life where I couldn't make excuses for my failures or blame myself for doors that had been slammed in my face. A life where I had to accept that I deserved better, that I was worthy of the dreams I'd given up. Detective, I said, I've been pretending for 20 years. I'm done pretending. She laughed, a bitter sound. You were 18, Elena. You had perfect credit, no financial history. You were useful. The word hit like a slap. Useful. Just like Sophia had been useful. I protected this family. I gave you both opportunities. You destroyed my opportunities to create Sophia's. Sophia deserved better. She was always smarter, more ambitious. So you sacrificed me to give it to her. My mother's mask finally slipped completely. You were never going anywhere anyway. Look at you. 38, working part-time at a library, living in that pathetic apartment. I did you a favor. I gave your life meaning. The recording device captured every word, every admission of theft, manipulation, and cold calculation. But when she stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper, I felt genuine fear. And if you think you're going to destroy what I've built, you're more naive than I thought. Problems can be solved, Elena, permanently. There it was, the threat Agent Chen needed, recorded and witnessed. Is that what you told your associates yesterday? That I was a problem to be solved? Her face went white. You little bitch, you were listening. She lunged for me, but I was already moving toward the door. It's over, Mom. All of it. Elena, stop! You don't understand what you're doing. But I did understand.
For the first time in 20 years, I understood everything perfectly. I reached my car as the first FBI vehicles turned onto the street, silent and swift. Through my rearview mirror, I watched agents surround the house that had never really been my home. Detective Hale's voice crackled through my earpiece. "Elena, are you clear?" "I'm clear," I said, driving away from my childhood for the last time. Behind me, the woman who'd called herself my mother was about to learn that some problems couldn't be solved with lies and forgery. Some problems required justice. The command post was set up in a van 3 blocks from my mother's house. I sat next to Agent Chen, watching multiple feeds from surveillance cameras as FBI agents moved into position. It was 6:47 a.m. "Teams are in place," Agent Martinez's voice crackled through the radio. "California and Texas units are standing by. Florida team reports subjects are on premises." 3 states, dozens of agents, all because of documents I'd found in my aunt's attic. "Execute," Detective Hale commanded. The feeds showed agents approaching the house from all angles. Front door, back door, basement entrance. No escape routes, no chance to destroy evidence. The door exploded inward. Agents flooded the house in tactical gear, voices shouting commands that echoed through the surveillance audio. "FBI, search warrant, get on the ground." On screen, I watched my mother stumble from the kitchen in her bathrobe, hands raised, her face cycling through shock, rage, and something that looked like respect. She'd been outplayed, and she knew it. "Marissa Vargas, you're under arrest for wire fraud, mail fraud, identity theft, money laundering, and conspiracy." Agent Chen squeezed my shoulder. "It's over, Elena." But it wasn't over. The radio crackled with reports from other locations. California team had arrested 2 associates and seized computers full of victim data. Texas team found a warehouse of forged documents. Florida team uncovered a money laundering operation that had been running for 8 years. "How many victims?" I asked. Agent Martinez checked his notes. "Preliminary count, they've over 200 people across 15 states. Your mother's operation was responsible for approximately $12 million. $12 million. 200 victims, all orchestrated by a woman who worked part-time at a department store and drove a decade-old Honda. On the surveillance feed, agents were carrying boxes of evidence from the basement. The safe I'd broken into, the files I'd photographed, the victim database that would finally give names and faces to 20 years of systematic theft. "Elena," Detective Hale's voice was gentle, "your mother is asking to speak with you."
Through the van's window, I could see her in the back seat of a police car, hands cuffed behind her back. Even now, even caught red-handed with enough evidence to convict her 10 times over, she thought she could manipulate me. "No," I said, "I have nothing to say to her." "She claims she was protecting you, says everything she did was for family." I thought about the offshore accounts, the forged documents, the casual way she discussed my murder. "Detective, my mother protected herself. Everything else was collateral damage." The raids continued for 6 hours. By afternoon, 13 people had been arrested across 4 states. Bank accounts containing over $3 million had been frozen. Properties worth millions more had been seized. And in a federal holding cell, Marissa Vargas sat alone, finally facing the consequences of 20 years of lies. "What happens now?" I asked Agent Chen. "Now comes the hard part. Trials, testimony, sentencing. It could take years to sort through all the victims and stolen assets." "And my mother?" "With the evidence we've collected and your testimony, she's looking at life in prison." Life in prison. The woman who'd sung me lullabies would die behind bars. I should have felt sad. Instead, I felt free. 6 months later, I sat in the witness box of a federal courtroom, facing Judge Evelyn Marks. The same hands that had shaken while recording my mother's confession now held steady as I placed them on the Bible. My mother sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, flanked by 2 public defenders who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. She'd lost weight in federal custody, but her eyes still had that calculating look I'd grown up fearing. "Ms. Vargas," the prosecutor began, "can you identify the person who stole your identity?" "My mother,
Marissa Vargas. And how long did this theft continue? 20 years, from when I was 18 until I discovered the truth 6 months ago. The courtroom was packed with other victims, people whose lives had been destroyed by my mother's criminal enterprise. Behind me, I could feel their pain, their anger, their desperate hope for justice. Sophia sat in the gallery, her face pale but determined. She'd testified earlier about the money that had paid for her education, her apartment, her comfortable life. The money that had been stolen from me and dozens of others. Ms. Vargas, did your mother ever threaten your life? Yes. She told associates that I was a problem that needed to be solved permanently. My mother's lawyer objected, but Judge Marks overruled him. The recorded conversation had been played to the jury that morning. There was no denying what she had said. In your own words, please, tell the court how this theft affected your life. I looked at my mother, this stranger who'd worn my family's face for 20 years. She didn't just steal my credit. She stole my future. Every scholarship I didn't get, every job I was rejected for, every door that closed, it was because she was using my identity to fund her criminal enterprise. And what would you like to see happen to the defendant? For 20 years, I'd made excuses for her. She was stressed, struggling, doing her best as a single mother. But sitting in that federal courtroom, facing the wreckage of hundreds of lives, I finally understood what justice looked like. I want her to face the full consequences of her crimes, not because she's my mother, but because she's a criminal who destroyed innocent people for profit. My mother's composure finally cracked. Elena, please. Judge Marks gavelled her to silence. The defendant will not address the witness. But I looked at her anyway, really looked at her. I forgive you, I said quietly, but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, forged documents, victim testimony, recorded confessions. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty, on all counts. Judge Marks sentenced Marissa Vargas to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Her criminal enterprise had stolen over $15 million from 247 victims across 18 states.
As they led her away in shackles, she looked back at me one last time, not with anger or hatred, but with something that might have been pride. Her daughter had finally learned to fight back. Outside the courthouse, Daniel was waiting with Sophia. "It's over," he said, pulling me into his arms. "No," I said, feeling sunlight on my face for the first time in months. "It's just beginning." 1 year later, I sat in the law school admissions office at the State University, holding documents that were finally, legitimately mine. Clean credit report, sealed federal witness records, a bank account with my real name and my real money. The admissions counselor smiled across her desk. "Ms. Vargas, your application is impressive. Full scholarship, based on academic merit and your unique circumstances." Unique circumstances. That was one way to describe testifying against your own mother in the largest identity theft case in state history. Daniel squeezed my hand in the parking lot afterward. "How does it feel?" I looked at the acceptance letter, at the future I'd dreamed of for 20 years. Like I'm finally meeting myself for the first time. Sophia had moved across the country, starting over with a new job and therapy to process the guilt of benefiting from stolen money. We talked every week now, 2 sisters rebuilding a relationship based on truth instead of lies. My mother's victims had received some restitution from seized assets, not enough to undo the damage, but enough to start over, like me. "You know what I realized?" I told Daniel as we drove away from campus. "She didn't steal my identity. She stole someone else's version of who I was supposed to be. The real Elena Vargas was always here, waiting to be discovered." That night, I threw away my old wallet, the one that had carried rejected cards and denied applications for 20 years. If family steals your voice, don't stay silent. The only way to reclaim yourself is to speak louder than the lies. And sometimes justice sounds like your own voice, finally telling the truth.
The acceptance letter from Princeton sat on my desk like a beautiful lie, its cream-colored paper catching the afternoon light streaming through my bedroom window. I'd read it 17 times since it arrived 3 days ago, each time expecting the words to change, for someone to tell me there'd been a mistake. My name is Sofia Ramirez. I'm 17 years old, valedictorian of Lincoln High School's senior class, and tomorrow I find out if I've won the full scholarship that could change everything. The scholarship my sister Marina applied for 2 years ago, the one she didn't get. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. For 4 years, I fought battles I couldn't name, recommendation letters that somehow never made it to college admissions offices, forcing me to track down teachers weeks before deadlines to request new ones. SAT scores mysteriously flagged for review, delaying results for months while other students move forward with their applications. College visit appointments that got canceled at the last minute, leaving me scrambling to reschedule during already packed weekends. Each time, I'd simply worked harder, stayed up until 3 in the morning perfecting essays that had already been rewritten 6 times, studied for the SAT until I could recite math formulas in my sleep, volunteered at the community center, joined debate team, started a tutoring program for younger students, anything to make my application shine brighter than the mysterious obstacles that seemed to follow me everywhere. I pressed my fingers against the Princeton letter, feeling the raised seal under my fingertips. The engineering program I'd dreamed about since middle school, when I'd built my first robot from spare computer parts Diego had salvaged from electronics recycling. The chance to study under professors whose research papers I'd read during lunch breaks, hunched over my phone in the school cafeteria while other kids talked about weekend plans. Sophia? Mom's voice drifted up the stairs, accompanied by the smell of her famous arroz con pollo. Dinner? I tucked the letter back into my desk drawer, underneath the stack of backup applications to state schools. Insurance policies, in case Princeton changed their mind. In case someone decided I wasn't good enough after all. The wooden stairs creaked under my feet as I descended to our small kitchen, where Mom stood stirring saffron into rice, her dark hair pulled back in the messy bun she wore after long days at the hospital. She worked double shifts as a nurse to keep us afloat after Dad left when I was 12. Every late bill, every scraped-together college application fee had come from her exhausted hands. "How was school?" she asked, not looking up from the stove. "Fine." I slumped into my chair at our scratched dining table, where Diego was already seated, controller in hand, thumbs moving frantically across buttons as aliens exploded on his Nintendo Switch screen. My little brother had grown 3 inches in the past year, but still looked tiny hunched over his games, thick-rimmed glasses sliding down his nose. "Any word on the scholarship?" Mom's voice carried that careful lightness she used when asking about things that mattered too much to mention casually. "Tomorrow." The word came out smaller than I intended. She turned from the stove, wooden spoon in hand, rice grains scattered across her scrubs. "Mija, whatever happens, you've already done something incredible. Princeton accepted you. Full merit. That's not luck. That's you." I wanted to believe her. But after years of watching opportunities slip through my fingers for reasons I couldn't understand, trust felt dangerous. The guidance counselor, Mr. Caldwell, had pulled me aside last week with a concerned expression, asking if I was having problems at home that might explain the irregularities in my file. Missing transcripts, emails that somehow bounced back undelivered, application deadlines that I swore I'd met, but the colleges claimed I'd missed.